like to call the meeting to order and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for Thursday, September 17th, 2015. The first matter on the agenda, we have a rezoning petition from West Adams Street. The Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to the proposed zoning amendment to extend the existing TMF, Traditional Multifamily Zoning District, to include the area of 21 West Adams Street. The area is presently zoned light industrial and is located in between Wilder and Walker Street. Anybody here, who's here from the applicant? Joe, have we received anything from the applicant on this, or here last meeting they asked for continuance?
Yes, they submitted a letter, again, requesting to continue to the November
Oh, they
16th
did?
meeting.
Oh, I didn't see that, okay. To when?
November 16th.
Is that a scheduled planning board evening night? The
I believe
16th?
so.
Is that what it is? I don't have the
There's
schedule with
the
me.
second meeting in November. I think it's
Okay.
the 16th.
All right. Yeah, I guess, all right. That listed as one of them? 11, November 16th? Okay, all right. What's the request of the board? I haven't seen the letter, but,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow that continuance.
okay. Motion is made to continue to 11/16/15 at the request of the applicant.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman, but just discussion before, and I thought we had asked, although there's nobody here in opposition or speaking for, I guess, but for petitioners to
Yeah, I didn't know. if
come
they-
before the board.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know why I'll send a letter, but I haven't seen the letter as well. so
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I know it's not like a site plan where if we don't act on it in so many days,
Right.
it's deemed accepted because it's just a recommendation for zoning
Right.
change to go before the city council, but I'll follow up on that, and so,
Right, yeah, I second the motion, Mr.
all right.
Chairman.
Thank you. Motion made and second. All in favor to continue to November 16th? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. Okay. Next matter is new business for public hearing, 1857.1 Middlesex Street, site plan review. Commonwealth LLC proposes to amend an existing site plan review approval to add an additional two-story, additional 2 stories to a 2-story building to be used as a public school. The applicant is seeking site plan review under section 11.4 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance. The parcel in total comprised of approximately 385,636 square feet of land area with 115,288 square feet of combined building area and are located in the suburban mixed-use zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Rafer Pellegrino, and I represent Commonwealth. I'm also a principal in Commonwealth.
I'm sorry, what's your first name? I didn't catch it?
Rafer, R-A-I, P as in Peter, H-E-R.
Okay.
Last name is Pellegrino, like the water,
Okay, thank you.
P-E-L-L-E-G-R-I-N-O. The applicant moves today to add 2 additional stories to the previously approved addition. As you may recall, this was a 115,000 square foot building, which has been taken down with the exception of approximately 20,000 square feet, which is in the process of being rehabilitated. Next to that, there was a 2-story classrooms in the front part, cafetorium in the back part. We anticipated initially moving, if in the future we move for expansion, came before this board to do the additional 2 floors. We're moving at this time for cost-saving measures, and because we weren't able to get the construction complete to get the students in there for the fall, that we can do it and save ourselves from having to put a new roof on and putting a 2-story elevator, tearing it back out, and then putting a 4-story. So there's a significant savings, over $500,000 to the school in the long run. We are not proposing to change any of the conditions. I want to address that right at the out front. We are not adding students. We're not adding additional traffic. We're not changing the queuing. There's no change whatsoever to the existing site other than approximately 27 feet higher, 2-story addition, approximately 18,000 square feet and change. I brought with me today at the view so you can see what it would look like, and also overall plan.
Sure.
This is the addition. This is where the
Could you try to put on the angle here so the audience can see as well, maybe to the side there, if you would, sir? Thanks. I appreciate that, yeah.
So the blue part is the 20,000 square feet roughly, that's existing structure, being rehabilitated. The red portion, you see the dividing line, the front portion is the existing approved two-story classrooms. The back portion is the cafeteria. The back portion will stay 2 floors. It's only the front part we're moving, requesting that it be expanded up 2 floors, which would add approximately 9,000 square feet per floor, roughly, plus or minus. It doesn't change, and we put this so you can see how much green space there is. Remember, this was 115,000 square foot, essentially one-story building, which were less than half of that size, even with this additional 2 floors. I also have for you.
Sure.
Elevations, so you can get some sense of.
I think she's gonna give you a microphone so that picks up, okay? Let's make sure the green light's on. Sure.
Okay, so the comment was, the first plan I'm showing you just represents where the existing approved structures are, red being the area where we're seeking the additional 2 floors on the front of it, closest to the bottom here. And as I said, there was a previously 115,000. This new site, even with the additional 2 floors, is less than half of the previous building that was on the site. The next plan that I brought is just showing you an elevation, so you can have some sense of what it will look like. And you'll see here, that shows you what 1C we refer to in our planning as the additional 2 stories, the 4-story. There's essentially a nominal difference, if any, from the outside. Please remember that this building is obstructed from the street. You can't see the site at all. It's so set back. And there's 2 apartment buildings, if you will, some houses in between, and all trees which are on this site's land that were maintained as part of the landscape plans that this board approved. So there's very little ability to visualize it from the street or from any other place. So it really has no effect whatsoever. Aside from that, I'll just stress again that we're not seeking a change in grades, students, anything of the nature. It's K-5. We'll maintain there, and if for avoidance of doubt, we don't have the ability to take more students by law without the Department of Education, and that's something that wouldn't come about if you look anything about the charter law. We couldn't do that until next year or beyond that. So we're not even to our cap right now of 525. We're a little below that. So I wanted to spell that because I've heard some rumors to that effect. I've also been made aware that there may be some objections on grounds that have nothing to do with this board. How the construction is being done, whether it was properly, RFP was sent, prevailing wage, all those issues. I'd suggest to you those aren't matters for this board's consideration, and I bring them up only in anticipation of some of the comments you may hear. Aside from that, I have no further comments. I'd ask that this addition be approved. Again, there's no adverse effect in any way, shape, or form to what we're doing. It doesn't change the conditions. We're not asking them to be modified. All we're simply asking to do is be allowed to put the additional 2 floors on at this time. If we're never allowed expansion in the future, that's unfortunately our risk. We're not asking to add students or anything of that nature. I can answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant that's pleasant with you tonight, sir?
Just me, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to turn it over to the public at this point in time. And, yeah, you can, why don't we just give it to Joe up here if you want, so that way if we have another speaker, I'll let Joe pass it out. Thank you. Okay. Okay, did anybody here want to speak in favor of the new site plan? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hear none? Anybody want to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Lowell Planning Board, members of the Board of Directors of the Lowell Collegiate Charter School, neighborhood leaders, my neighbors and friends, I'm here to discuss the subject matter. And I'm in a very unique position where I have friends on one side of the issue and I have neighbors on the other side. I'm here tonight because I received many calls from abutters and neighbors in my neighborhood. As we all well know, Mr. Chairman, the Lowell Planning Board does not just represent developers. It represents the people of the city. It represents good development. I was here 2 years ago when the request was for a two-story building. And it passed. 2008, 2009, I was a member of the city council, and I was the mayor at that present time. On the agenda item, there was an article for transferring some land on Middlesex Street to Walgreens. Nancy Judge and I opposed that project with many people in the neighborhood. The vote on that transfer was 8-1. Walgreens was built. But it wasn't built until the developer met with everyone in the neighborhood, not once, not twice, but at least 4 times. Compromise was the name of the game. And because of the neighborhood leaders meeting with that developer, that's why you have a separate entrance now onto the Rourke Bridge. And that developer made many, many compromises to the neighborhood. And rightfully so. Members of this board, I've been told that this developer, Mr. Pellegrino, has not met once, not once, with any abutters or any neighbors. Mr. Pellegrino, is that true? No. We're going from a 2-story building to a 4-story building. It's like we were amending a huge project after a 2-year delay. One other question, Mr. Pellegrino. This is going to be a public school funded by public finances?
Mr. Coffey, address your questions to the chair, please, not to him. This isn't a debate, you know better.
Well, I just want to know if
No,
prevailing
you can ask the
wages,
questions, we'll get them.
if prevailing wages are going to exist.
That-
What I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, is for this board to delay action on this article that's on the agenda for 2 weeks, and to have Mr. Pellegrino to meet with the neighbors and the abutters and let them see the site plan. At least give them a chance. And there's 2 words that's used constantly in government, Mr. Chairman. You know it, and I know it. Common courtesy. And it's not being used here. Common courtesy. I asked for a delay on this for 2 weeks. I'm not against the charter school. I think charter schools are wonderful. But it's the way that this developer is proceeding with an arrogant tone. I can sense it, I can see it. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, Douglas Hausler, representing Lexi Development, which is a direct abutter. When I was last before this board, at one point, Mr. Frechette didn't even require me to get up and utter a sound or a syllable, because he immediately questioned the attorneys representing the applicant when they came in before this board and said what was being proposed was a minor modification, not subject to site plan review. And it's one of the first times I've won a hearing without ever saying a word, so it was kind of nice night. But I come back here tonight and I still see no compliance with the fundamental requirements for site plan review. There is no traffic study that's been submitted that accompanies a site plan review as required by your bylaws. Your bylaws say anything over 10,000 square feet, and Mr. Frechette quoted it directly, 11.4.2.1.b. It goes on and on. But anything over 10,000 square feet, and this is a 16,000 square foot proposal, requires site plan review. Site plan review, when I looked at the bylaws, said traffic studies, parking, every department gets an opportunity to review the plans, determine whether or not peer review is necessary of each of those items or not. And we have none of that here. And I think that's a distinct disadvantage to my client as a abutter and to the entire neighborhood. People had to come out here again tonight, and in my opinion, are wasting their time because the developer is pushing forward a proposal, being very cute with the language of your decision, your prior decision. You've heard it repeatedly tonight. They're not adding students, and they're not adding grades. They're adding a building to accommodate those in the future, but they're not adding them yet. I call that death by 1,000 cuts. All right, build the building, and then what? Now we do the site plan review when the students want to come in, and do we do it year by year? 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? I suggest the whole purpose of planning and these reviews and site plan review is to take the project in its totality. They represent, this is going to be a K through 12 school. That's how they advertise themselves and hold themselves out to families. And people are relying on the fact that they anticipate this to be a full K through 12 school. And it should be assessed by this board on that level. The full build-out. What is the sense of using public funds? Because they may be privately financed right now, but that's all because the lease, which is going to be paid by this charter school, is going to allow for that to be repaid, and those are public funds. They're coming out of the city of Lowell taxpayers. They're coming out of the Commonwealth. Why would you allow a project to continue to build incrementally without having ever determined if it's appropriate, because their goal is to get to grades 12. Their parking analysis should be based on K through 12. It may be, it's unclear whether or not it is or it's not in their plans that were originally filed with the board, because they show 144 spaces. I don't think they just picked that out of the air. I'm sure there's some kind of calculation to back that up. But what isn't before this board at all, and it's the primary issue, and it was reflected in their own engineering reports, that the traffic analysis has to be based on K through 12, and they haven't done it. Their own traffic engineer in his report that you relied upon 2+ years ago when the permit was issued, it was from Vanessa & Associates, Inc., and it said, these recommendations, everything in the approval, all the analysis is based solely on grades 1 through K through 5. So what is this board supposed to ignore the reality that's just coming down the pike year after year of adding students? It may be perfectly acceptable. It may not be. I don't know, and you don't know because you don't have the details. It's premature, to put it nicely, that this application is even being discussed tonight. I would ask respectfully in the first part that there be no further consideration of this application tonight. That number 2, that the applicant fulfill its obligations per the bylaws. Get a traffic analysis in that is for K through 12, not K through 6 or K through 7, not based on adding just 2 floors. They just showed you a beautiful building, what this is ultimately going to look like. Then assess the project on the entirety, not simply on a grade-by-grade approach. In July of 2015, the applicant was informed by Department of Planning and Development that they originally thought that the adding 2 floors would trigger full site plan review. And you spoke to Mr. Elides and Mr. Theodoro that night, who were making the representations to the board, and the board just unanimously just shut it down, because it was sheer nonsense. And we're not much greater than that tonight. We have no additional information. There's not a single abutter here that could take a look at anything to say, what's the queuing for the traffic going to look like when it's K through 12? They showed 65 cars on just K through 5. Just imagine when you have high school students coming. Where are they going to park? How many students might there be at that point in time? These are all critical points, and none of you can assess that. And if you attempt to, I suggest you'd be in violation of your duties as planning board members. I believe you have certain rights to waive the requirements of reports, but I would urge you not to use that discretion in favor of a developer when there's an entire neighborhood who you'll hear more from, I'm sure, saying we have no facts upon which we can assess the project. And I think we have to be mindful of I'd say a little bit of unfairness behind this, to put it nicely. You know, they're saying they're being cute. They're not adding grades yet. They're not adding students yet. It presupposes you don't build a building with public funds unless you anticipate having those areas built out and used. It's a waste of taxpayer money, ultimately. We just want compliance, and that's all we ask for. So the suggestion we would submit to the board is the board reject the application as being insufficient. The applicant be required to comply with all the requirements intended of the zoning bylaw, including but not limited to a full traffic analysis on a K through 12 basis. That when that report is eventually delivered by their traffic engineer, it be posted on your website, that it be subject to peer review, and that a hearing only be scheduled to address those issues 2 weeks after the peer review has been submitted, so that neighbors can look through everything from the applicant's viewpoint as well as from a peer review viewpoint. And then they have a better sense of what they're anticipating to be living with for the rest of their lives. Because that's what if this school's built out to that extent, those neighbors and my client and a butter is going to be dealing with that forever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Judge. I live at 28 Foss Street, about a mile, maybe less than a mile from 1857.1 Middlesex Street, and I also co-chair the Highlands Neighborhood Association. Let me just say this to you gentlemen. You've heard it all. What I'd like to do simply right now is just ask you to consider postponing the vote for at least a couple weeks, next meeting, perhaps even the next one, so that, yes, we all could sit down, review what's before us, and see where we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sandy McNamara, and I belong with Citywide Neighborhood Group, also president of Centerville Community Coalition. My question tonight is, if there is no reason or no use for those 2 floors, why are we even talking about it? Thanks, that's all I needed to say.
Thank you.
My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell. I am the Vice President of the Citywide Neighborhood Council, and we have a few questions. First of all, there are many people not in this room that might be watching this that have no idea what a charter school is. And I made a few phone calls prior to today and also today, and there are many people in the city that still don't know what a charter school is. Evidently, a charter school is a school that receives public funding, so we're all paying for it whether we like it or not. It operates independently of the established public school system in which it is located. Charter schools are an example of alternative education. I went to a private school, but my family had to write a check to pay the tuition for me to go. This is in a little different category. And there are many questions. So evidently it's funded by state money and city money, am I right? That's the way it was explained to me, right, okay. And my question to the developer is, do you live in Lowell? That would be my one interesting question. Also, it seems like this has been dragged on for 2 years, and you're right next to the fabulous Rourke Bridge, which nobody really wants to drive over it unless they really have to. And it's being dragged on and on. It's like building a school on the installment plan. So it looks like there's quite a bit of questions for the neighborhood and concerns for the neighborhood. And I have gone over that intersection at that, say, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's not something I'd want to do every day. The presentation was made to the board, but when it was over here, it wasn't seen by the public. The other thing is this. I believe the neighbors have been here many, many times. And I've only been here a few times, and that was a few times too many myself. So I know they've been here many times. And if you're going to do a project, it's only fair to the neighbors to give them the project, not to give it to them on the installment plan, right? And what the neighbors are asking is that you postpone your vote tonight so that the neighbors can get to see the actual plans in black and white, and maybe the developer could have a meeting with some of the neighbors and answer some of their questions. And adding 2 floors onto a building is quite a task. Has there been an updated traffic study? Does anybody know? Is the original traffic study outdated? Because traffic over near the Rourke Bridge is not pleasant. Has anybody given you some plans for new parking for this building that's going to have 2 more floors on it? Has anybody given us any information in regards to bus routing? And is this going from K to 8 or K to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? If you're going to have high school students, do they drive their cars? Where do they park their cars? Do they come in a bus? What are the bus routes, right? I know somebody did do a traffic study, and there was a little question. They were going to promise some traffic improvements. Has that been done? Has it been followed through? And I think the neighbors are getting tired, and maybe somebody's hoping they'll get tired and they just won't show up anymore and give up. This is a neighborhood. This is where people live. This is where they pay their taxes to pay for this school. This is where they raise their family. The other question, so what happens if they lose their charter? Then what do you do with this building? We're asking you to postpone it. Let this developer meet with the neighbors, answer some questions, because I don't know if he lives here or not, but we know the neighbors are here, and they're entitled to the respect of having questions answered and to try to get everybody on the same page and see if we can all do it in a small period of time instead of we'll do some this year, we'll do some 3 months from now, we'll do it again in 6 months, and we'll come back in 9. We're all getting a little older here. We thank you very much, and we do appreciate it if you could put it on hold for a while.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Thank you. My name is Stephen Moses. I reside at 1961 Middlesex Street. First, I'd like to reiterate what former Mayor Caulfield said with regard to common courtesy. This envelope is the only thing I've received from the developers. This is a notice about this meeting. Nothing else has been said. In talking to people in the area, we're concerned about traffic. I think the Lexi spokesperson talk about traffic. In addition, we talk even maybe a possible sound barrier. But this is a new addition because, you know, the third and fourth floor of that building, there is no other building that high in the whole area there. I mean, if you think about it, if you're familiar with Middlesex Village, buildings are maybe 2 stories high. Right in front of the school are apartments, and that's about what it is. So to add a third and fourth story, we're talking about something new, and so maybe a consideration of a sound barrier is appropriate or not. But in any case, what the previous speakers said with regard to meeting with the developers would be an excellent idea. I'd like to comment on some other things. First, during the board's previous deliberations regarding this project, there was discussion to the need for sidewalks for students to utilize on their way to and from the school. In the site plan review decision, which was forwarded to the city clerk by the Department of Planning and Development in a letter dated March 12, 2013, the planning board's review decision enumerated 17 conditions. These conditions included the issue of sidewalks. At this point in time, nothing has been done to change the situation that existed in 2013. The sidewalk on the side of Middlesex Street that is directly in front of the school still is not complete from the Rourke Bridge to the Chelmsford line. And Dingwell Street, which is the only street by the school which connects from Middlesex Street to Princeton Boulevard, has no sidewalks on either side. Students who reside in apartments on Princeton Boulevard and Wood Street would use Dingwell Street to walk to the school. There are no sidewalks on either side of the street. Condition number 17 in the reference decision indicates that the city shall accept from the applicant a financial contribution of $50,000 as offered by the applicant prior to building occupancy, and an additional $25,000 each year for the next 4 years to provide sidewalk improvements to promote safe pedestrian access from the neighborhoods to the school. My concern is, when is the $50,000 going to be made available to the city so the sidewalks can be constructed where they currently do not exist? Going on to another aspect of this project, as an additional 2 floors are being requested for the school, have the plans included any reference to green construction of the building and facilities within the school so that we may preserve various resources in our city? I've sat through numerous meetings regarding this project here at the Planning Board, as well as at the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Conservation Commission. At these meetings, I've heard many requests made on behalf of the school. Tonight, I would like to make 2 requests of the school on behalf of the community. First, many of you realize there is no public building in Middlesex Village. The last one was the Middlesex Village School, which was demolished in 1998. In case of emergency, there is no public facility to serve as an emergency shelter. I would like to propose that the school enter into a written agreement with the city, allowing the city to use the school on quick notice for reasons of emergency shelter. The other request has to do with voting. It may come as a surprise to some, but those of us who live by the school travel over 2.5 miles to the Bailey School to vote. The charter school could offer the city an area for voting within its building, hopefully without a cost to the city. One last request. The site plan review decision contained various conditions that the school is required to adhere to. An example would be the school drop-off and pick-up traffic management plan, which among other provisions includes the provision of police officer details at the entrance and exit driveways and a prohibition of student pickup or drop-off outside the school property along the roadways of the city. I would like to request that the abutters receive the name, phone number, and email address of the person at the school to contact, and in addition, the name, phone number, and email address of the person in city government who has purview over the enforcement of this decision, who could be contacted if there was a problem regarding this plan. In summary, 1, the students of the charter school need sidewalks. 2, the residents of the surrounding area need a place to vote and a nearby emergency shelter. And 3, the abutters need to know who to contact at the school and in city government regarding any problems with the school drop-off and pick-up traffic management plan. I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition, anyone else? Anybody else? Anybody else? No? At this time, I'll turn it over. Any board members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure, Mr. Fischett?
I guess the first question to ask, it appears to be a very reasonable request by the residents. To Mr. Pellegrino, would you be able to meet with the residents if we had a postponement for the next 2 weeks?
Obviously, I can meet with them, just so the board's aware, we met with several residents. Anyone who contacted the city or the planning department, we responded to their concerns. We've addressed anyone who's contacted the school regarding from a neighbor or anyone else. Not one of the individuals who's come before you has reached out in any effort to try to contact us, discuss it, learn anything. The reason I would ask this board vote on this today and approve it for two reasons. One, we're under a timeline because we have, and you may appreciate this, to order the steel to do the floors, we have to order it now because it's not something that you can just, it's off the shelf. And we're moving in for a December, shooting for December move-in of the students from the other site. The 2 weeks, believe it or not, is critical to the ability to have it on schedule for that period of time. We were on this September 17th meeting, which was as quick as we could get before the board for a full site plan review. I can offer this. I'm happy to meet with them, show them the plans, go through everything. But in regards to the specific questions that were asked, and I don't want to restate what I said before, but I think it's clear, there is no impact, no change, and no need for a new traffic study. There's already one in existence. We're not asking at this point for anything beyond what's before this board. I just find it surprising that a number of people come out, some of which I understand why they're coming out for opposition for other reasons, which are fairly evident, I think, to the board based upon past hearings. But the neighbors, we're happy to meet with them at any time, all the time. Not one individual has contacted the school. I have the director and I have the chairman of the board of the school both here today, and they both can attest to you that any contact whatsoever from anybody who's called, citizen, neighbor, resident, reporter, is passed through and we've responded to immediately. And I don't think there's one person who can get up here today and say they've attempted to contact us and find out about it. Now in the 11th hour, when we unfortunately very much need this passed this evening so we can stay on track for these students, they're saying, well, let's postpone it for the sake of postponing it. I mean, what are I took copious notes of what their requests were and walking through it with respect to, and I can just kind of go through the first ones. As I anticipated, we're very comfortable with how the project is moving forward, whether it's with respect to the development laws. That's not an issue for this board. I think this board's clearly aware of that, especially in light of the Dover Amendment. With respect to so that was the first speaker, and the request was there was talk about Walgreen and something of that nature. I can't comment to what occurred before I became involved in this project, but I can comment since we've been very responsible, have constantly worked with the city, its inspectors, with the planning department to make sure everything is done properly on that site. In fact, we were blamed for some trees that were taken down on the site that wasn't even us, it was a neighbor. And we immediately went out and addressed it, even though it wasn't something that was done by us. We've been a good neighbor, extremely good neighbor, and very proactive to the extent that we're working with both site owners who own the property along the access way. We're working with them, National Grid, dealing with all the sidewalk issues, entrance, exit issues. Those are things we're in compliant with every condition you have here. With respect to the payment of those funds, the clear language of that condition is not due yet. At the appropriate time, it will be complied with. And the city has the mechanism, the building occupancy certificate obviously won't be issued until those conditions are complied with.
Mr. Pellegrino, I think you missed the point of the Walgreens story. And your depiction of your cooperation to date, can I tell you about the history of what the board has had to deal with?
No, I understand, and I fully understand. I guess all I'm trying to say is, since we've become involved, we've tried to be very proactive, deal with all the issues. The reasons I've heard for the continuance are obviously the first issue. The second issue, with respect to the traffic analysis, I think I've already addressed that issue, and there's no effort here. We met with the planning department as to how to bring this matter forward, what should be included, not be included, and we tried to work cooperatively with the city. We're not being accused about anything.
Mr. Pellegrino, with all due respect,
Yes.
you had several meetings with our planning department, and what you tried to do was bring it forward to us without requiring site plan review. At the complete opposite recommendation of our entire planning staff and city solicitors as well.
Are you
So-
referring to the July meeting?
Yes.
Yeah,
And again, but how can we come up with, we base our judgment based on our past experience.
right? And.
So I can appreciate what you're trying to do here
Okay.
this evening, and I understand the issues. But I think that's a reasonable request. And part of the reason why, the concern we had, and at least I'm speaking for myself at this point, I'll let the other members of the board obviously speak. But the concern we had when that request came before us, or the concern that I had when it came before us, was we talk about transparency in government. And if one could imagine what that would have been like if we approved a two-story addition, so these are people that were all here at the very beginning. And were here when that was approved, and all of a sudden, 2 stories go up, and they're looking and saying, what happened? I went to all those meetings, how come there's 2 stories on here? So, and is, working cooperatively, what I will tell you is that the entire staff recommended that you needed to post for site plan review. You lost time because you didn't want to post that for site plan review. And initially, when this came through, the articles appear in the newspaper, we were blamed for delaying the project when some very, 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 very detailed information was provided to us the afternoon of the meeting. So the history, at least at this board, has not been one of cooperation. So when we sit here, and you may not, I know you weren't involved at the outset, but.
I understand that
but-
that's
but so-
something I
so-
take ownership of, but I certainly don't think that when someone comes before a board, the board denied it, rightfully so, we respected that, and I've gone through the process to do it. I'm not asking the board to reconsider the July meeting, I haven't brought that up, and I fully respect.
No, but
it.
I think, you dismissed as you call the Walgreens story. The point is that before a decision was made, and we pride ourselves here in the city of Lowell, I don't know how much development you've done in the city of Lowell, but we do pride ourselves on involving the neighborhoods, neighborhood groups. I think at the end of the day, that's where we end up with better projects. And we try to address the concerns of everyone. And sometimes it's a matter of just providing information, to be honest with you. It's not necessarily going to change the outcome, but at least there's a better understanding of what's happening. And I do have concern with, because I know how this is going to play out, and I'm glad you admitted that, taking responsibility that you're building this at your own risk, because if you come back before us based on the wording of the approval, and we deny the expansion of the additional students, that now all of a sudden I can hear it now, you've expended all this money for the addition of the school, and we won't allow you to have students in it. So that is a concern, getting it piecemeal. And so, and I understand, I think from the letter of the law for site plan review, I get what you're doing, and I get what and quite frankly, in all due respect, one of the speakers said, the requirement is for a traffic study. There is no requirement for a traffic study in site plan review. We need to take into the consideration the effects, and in order to sometimes do that, and a project of this scope obviously requires a traffic study and a peer review, which is what we had the first time around. And a lot of the recommendations that were put forth in the conditions came from the traffic study and the peer review. But you're not, and it's in the original condition, you cannot increase the student body without coming before us. So, and I know, and again, this becomes kind of getting information out there. I understand from your site plan perspective that you're not increasing the traffic. Matter of fact, as an administrative adjustment that was done on this project, they actually, you improve the traffic flow within the site. And I don't know, I don't think anybody was aware of that, because that was done as that was not determined to be a material and substantial change. That was a positive thing, and it was actually going in the right direction. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, from site plan review, you're walking the line of complying with the site plan review. What I think is extremely helpful, and we've had a lot of people involved in this, is I really would like you to be able to cooperate and say, look, this is a reasonable request. Nobody's coming here saying, requesting something unreasonable. The abutters are asking for a 2-week
And I don't
extension to actually, if you can sit down.
I don't have any problem with that. I
Yep.
guess all I'm trying to just let the board, and I understand your comment with respect to the July meeting, and I take ownership for that. Certainly, it was people that we retained and were acting in what they thought was the best interest of this project. Having said that, I'm trying to explain to you the critical nature of the timeline.
Every time you've come before, this project has come before us,
think-
that has been an issue.
Well, I guess what I can say to you is, assuming this were approved, this would be the last critical time, because then there'll be ample time to deal with any other future requests, so this board can.
Well, what I envision is that you're going to be looking to increase the student body by a certain time frame. We're going to be hit with that, and.
No, but I'm saying that's not, the reason for the urgency of the previous meeting is because we came into this in February. I'm sure you appreciate the magnitude of the project that we've undertaken. And we're not able to reach our initial goal of September. In order to reach December, and I think you understand the logistics of it, when you're putting the other two, the steel girders running up, we have to pre-order those and put those up. We can't, the 2 weeks' time is critical to us. I mean, could it still possibly done outside date? Maybe, but it certainly puts against the wall, because we can't order those steel girders until such time we know we have the approval. And that's really why we're here today. So what I was suggesting, and maybe it's another way to look at it, we've heard what the concerns of the neighbors are. I was starting to go through them. There's a few more. I think if you look at the bottom line, and I completely understand, and I'm happy to do a meeting and have a public forum and show people, if the board were to act today, I'll still do it next week or whenever it's appropriate, so people understand what's going on. That's not our issue, to hide things. What I'm trying to focus on, okay, what were the specific issues? The only issue I heard about is the traffic, which, quite frankly, I don't view as a legitimate issue, because it's not a change from what's already, we're not increasing in any way, shape, or form. So I tried to go through each neighbor, and the three last speakers, their objections were essentially that they just didn't see more of it. I'm happy to take a recess look at them and let them look at the view, but the two views you have here is all we can, I mean, I can't provide any more whether I have another meeting or not. So it doesn't dissuade. I went through what they talked about, having a voting center, having a emergency home. Those are all things that the board can consider that I couldn't, as a developer, consider, because they're going to be in control of the property. I'm sure the board will work and have an open forum to to do things like that. I can tell you, I can represent to you that Sabbath schools all over the country do things like that, where they have people come, public teams come and play soccer on their fields. They're a very good neighbor, and in fact, it's shown to increase the property values. Every site they've done, we've kept analysis. It's increased the property value of all the surrounding properties. So when I look at the other ones, Mr. Moses points to things that the only other one is something we have to do anyhow. We're committed to do under the conditions. Yep. So I guess all I'm saying is, if we can balance it, if the board can approve it, put a condition that I meet with the neighbors within 10 days or whatever, 14 days, whatever you want. I'll be here tomorrow if that's when they want to meet. But I don't see any advantage to the neighbors in delaying this, because you have all the facts before you. If there was a moving component to it, I could understand a delay for that purpose. I'm happy to have a public forum. I'm happy to have neighbors, and I'll do it at a civic association. I'll attend it. I'm okay with that. I can walk them through. I want to be a good neighbor for the future, because obviously I need them, and hopefully they want us. And so there's a bigger thing in the future at stake for us, that we're not just going to ignore what our representation obligations are. I'm just legitimate, and I understand we're coming before with time deadlines. This is not it's not an arbitrary deadline. It's something that unfortunately is a legit, realistic deadline, because of the magnitude of the construction, because of the soils that were there. We had to do extra reinforced things and with the 2 floors. So I'm trying to balance an interest for the school long run and trying to save money, which quite frankly is at great financial risk to me as a developer, trying to do something positive for this school, so that they're not taking on a bigger line item later on. And at the same time, I don't see what issue before. I mean, if we look at this concretely, and let's say we all met and we went through it, we know it's 27 feet higher. We know it's 18,000 square feet. those are the only operative facts that would parlay into into the decision. Where if we were a changing student in traffic, I understand all these components. Then I'd say, you know what, it's appropriate to put it off for 2 weeks. But I guess I'm imploring this board. Obviously, I respect whatever the board does. I have to deal with it, and I will. But I hope you hear my concern. This is, to the tune of a $500,000 difference to the ultimate budget of the school long run, and that's why I'm asking. And by all means, put it as a condition that we meet with the neighbors within 10 days, 7 days, 14, whatever's reasonable for the board of the neighbors, and I'm happy to do that and answer not only the questions relative to this, but I'll start to entertain, explain what our plans are long term, so everybody knows about it, because we at some point want to come back before this board, give you ample time to have as many meetings as you need to flesh out the issues. And we recognize that you want to see operation potentially before expansion. We get that. So we're looking to try to bring that in sooner than later, so this board will have, multiple meetings to address it. We're not trying to ram it down this board's throat or anyone else, and if it weren't a time frame, look, if we made a mistake and my counsel went in here and trying to do it the other way, it is what it is. I can't apologize for that. We did what, I followed recommendations. The board spoke, and now we're here for a full site plan review with everybody voicing their concerns.
Thank you. And just to Joe, real quick, Joe, and there were some questions regarding some of the conditions from the original approval, and if you can kind of just, in a global sense, go over that, because some of them, before an occupancy permit would be issued, some of these things have to be complied with. So if you just kind of go over that briefly.
Right, that's correct, Mr. Frechette. There would be a number of conditions that would have to be complied with. I think, as was referenced, the payment for the sidewalks, we could certainly communicate with the board. What it felt was appropriate would be the first $50,000. I think that was the first payment, and then 25 years every additional year after that until the sidewalk was constructed up to the Chelmsford line. So getting at least that initial $50,000 would be something that would definitely be taken care of before the occupancy permit is issued, and other things in terms of landscaping, in terms of having the operations plan for the traffic queuing, contact information for who would be responsible for that in case there were any issues going on. Ongoing review of the traffic, I believe that was also another condition. Yep. So a number of things like that would take place prior to the occupancy permit, and obviously the 6-month review would take place 6 months after.
Okay, and again, those were all good questions that people had, but those are incorporated in those conditions, and before you can get an occupancy permit, that has to be complied with, and that's the building department that has to make sure that, in fact, that's in compliance.
Correct, it would be building inspectors that go out
Yep.
there, the engineering department, and our zoning enforcement agent.
Right. All right, that's all I have at the moment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to echo. Mr. Chairman,
Nope, not yet. No, let the board members speak, then we'll come back to you, okay?
I would like to echo Mr. Frichette's.
What was that answer, Mr. Chairman?
I said, let the board members speak first, then I'll come back to you.
Okay, that's
Okay?
fine.
Yeah.
Like,
And maybe some more questions.
I am getting.
Common courtesy.
Yes, indeed. What was I going to say? Now I remember. I was going to say that I am myself quite fed up with the applicant and his timelines that they create, leaning on the board to act in an emergency manner and not take the time that we would appropriately take with the project. This deadline that you wish to meet is considerably less important to me than having an appropriate site plan review process. I mean, one meeting, we're getting one meeting to act, or we're the bad guys who blow your deadline. One meeting? We can't even have a continuance? What if there's a question that came up tonight? Okay? I'm tired of this project operating this way. I have a couple of questions for staff. The applicant has made the representation that adding this, even adding this space would not allow them to expand the student body in any way. What sort of what is the protection that is provided in that, in the existing in the existing site plan review conditions?
It's a good question, Ms. Boyle. So, as you know, the condition says K through 5. It doesn't give a specific student number. That being said, the applicant does have their charter for a specific number of students. If that charter were to increase to allow for additional students, that's when they would seek to add additional grades, presumably, unless they wanted to seek to just still keep K through 5, say if you were allowed a charter of 500 students, say, and then your charter was increased to 750, you could still, under the condition, the way it's written, but maybe not the way it was intended, keep it K through 5, but have it for additional students. And it would take an addition of this size to trigger site plan review.
Yes, the way it's written, it would allow them to fill as much space as they can build with K through 5 students.
It would seem to be that way. At least one could interpret it that way. It would
See-
be difficult, I think, to have the applicant come back, with the addition of more students but not additional grades, the way the decision is written.
I think I can anticipate the applicant's response here. He's going to cite the charter and how many students he's allowed to have under his charter. My only concern here is about the zoning and what our zoning and our permit has to say, because those charters can change totally without any regard for consideration of the board or the city in any manner. And we certainly can't rely on that to provide any sort of a security. What we were relying on to provide a security about total student numbers was the physical space of the building that we had permitted. Okay? They can put as many students in, they can put a certain number of students in the space that we permitted, and the traffic studies and the mitigation that we were talking about were all based on that assumption about that number of students. So if they're adding more space to their building, our permits would allow them to add more students without any further review if we were to grant this permit tonight. Unless we were to take what I think would be unwise action of permitting the construction of building space with a condition that it not be used. I mean, that would be an option. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't even be an option. Is that even lawful?
I suppose it could be a condition that the space couldn't be occupied until, an increase in the charter or an increase in the grade was presented to this board. I suppose that could be an option. That we wouldn't issue any occupancy permit for that space.
Issue an occupancy permit for that space. I don't know. I think that sounds dodgy. I don't think we can permit a building without permitting the use of that building. Was this passed around to the departments as per the standard review procedure?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we just didn't get back a lot of comments because there's we didn't get back comments because the representation is being made, we're talking about the same number of students. And they're producing the same amount of wastewater and producing the same amount of traffic and all of these things, so it wouldn't change any of their reviews. But you know what? I don't believe that's true. I mean, even if this board could put a condition on the permit that the top 2 floors not be used, that wasn't part of the applicant's application. The applicant's application was to create space. And so, once again, it probably should have been reviewed under the assumption that the space would be occupied and would be, there would be that many additional students. Because that is a possibility under what they submitted. All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can, I don't think we should, and I'm not even sure we can, permit a building without permitting the use. I think we have to permit the use, and therefore we have to review this project with the use. Those are my thoughts on the matter.
I have this is going to be a K-12 development eventually. Does that mean that you're coming back for more additional space beyond this?
The long-term plan would be to come back, and that's what I was talking about when I said earlier to the board. We would come back before this board we have to, for any expansion of grades or students.
But physically, are you planning on expanding the development?
Yes, the building, we would like to in the future, but that's not something we're prepared to go forward today, or we're asking to go forward. We're not asking to increase students now, only the space with existing students. And just for a point of clarification, and I understand the comment about the zoning versus the charter school. Under the charter school law, we're not able to change our students, our grades or numbers. We're locked into that. So we wouldn't have an ability to change it, and we would come back before this board before we would ask for any, to increase, the student bodies. We have to comply with these conditions. They're mandated by your vote. I mean, that's something legally enforceable, which I'm sure the city would enforce. We don't plan on violating that. But to answer your question, long term, the board would like to have it to be a K-12 site. It's sufficient in size, 9 acres, and it is correct as one of the speakers. All of our parking numbers and everything like that are projections covering what we expect to be. We were coming back in with our final master plan, if you will, which was the next phase, but it's just not pertinent yet. The school has to get renewed, the second charter before they're not even approved to go to K-8. They only go to K-8 right now. They don't even get to the 12 until it goes back before for a charter renewal after 5 years. So we're still 2 years out or 3? 2 years out.
Do you plan to build out the interior of the 2 additional floors?
We do, because what we were going to do right now is just cap them, put the roof on, not build them out, and then in the spring, as we get closer, start to build them out, just cost savings, because we don't need the space right now. But obviously, we have to run all the HVAC ducts and everything, block it in, and then we'll save the money, not build out the rest until we get toward, say, maybe, I don't know, April, something like that, early enough so we can make sure it's done for whenever we need it in the future, or late enough to save money. So it's kind of a balancing act. But I mean, even if we were to build it out, the use is just for the existing kids. It's not more people. Not more people are coming. It's just it's more space spread out, do different programs, tutoring, just things. A luxury that maybe the school otherwise wouldn't have, having some extra space and not cramming them in the requirements that usually we try to operate under, because you have so many students per classroom, and we base it upon numbers and square foot and things like that. So the initial plan is tight. We knew it was tight, and this just gives them a little bit of luxury. But practically speaking, even if we wanted to build it out, we probably wouldn't have it built out until, if we got the constructed, we're focusing on first and second floor because we need those, the cafetorium, and then start in January, sometime after that, we would focus on building out those other 2 floors.
I guess I have a problem. I don't understand why you didn't anticipate this in the beginning. that you were going to,
Yeah, because we were.
it's poor planning
Yeah,
from the start.
Well, yes and no. September, we knew we couldn't do 4 floors for September. We just physically couldn't do it. And we thought we could have the 2 floors in the plan that was approved done for September, and then come back in as part of our future site plan and deal with the 3rd and 4th floor and other permitting. Because we weren't able to do that for things beyond our control, there was a number of site-related issues that this is a complicated demolition site that we found all kinds of gravel and additional things that we had to, excavate and get into. And then we had to have our seismic engineering redone because of the type of, once we remove those to make sure the soils were there. It was a very time-intensive process to get this underway. So our plan all along, beginning was, okay, we have to absorb that cost, the roof and the two-story elevator. Now we realize we can save a substantial amount of money for the school, and that's why we're asking just to cap it, finish it. If at the end of the day you're saying you don't want us to finish it for, till May, or until we come back before the board, I'm happy to do that. We just want to, I think it's somewhat, somewhat putting an arbitrary rule on something that doesn't serve a legitimate purpose, because we're not increasing numbers or anything like that. So I think it's an overkill. That's not going to affect, represent. So I understand what you're saying, and past speakers about the time deadlines. I've tried to explain as much as I can. These are things that we tried to anticipate coming into this. I came into this project trying to get this going, since February. I think we've made tremendous strides to get where we need to be, and we're on the goal line. We're trying to account for these problems, and that's why I'm representing to this board. Future plans, which I would suggest, I understand, are the ones that there's going to be a lot of need to study and understand traffic flow and impact and changes. I understand that. I fully expect those to take several meetings, and we're happy to meet with the neighbors ahead of time. And now that I understand that's part of what the board would like to see, I'm happy to do those things. But it doesn't really bear on the issue that we're here today. We've always been upfront that it would be we would like to make it a larger long-term K-12 site if this board finds it appropriate and it meets the requirements.
Okay, thank you. I also have a problem with why in the last 3 months you haven't met with the neighbors. You'd rather have them as allies than now coming before saying they don't know anything about this project and they want a delay. I think every developer I ever dealt with went to the neighborhood first, and we always just about require it. And I think they shouldn't have to come to you. You should have to go to them.
And that's a fair comment. But just so the board's aware, we have met with a number of neighbors. We've been working actively with all the immediate abutters who own multi-unit apartment buildings. We've been meeting with the owners, with their attorneys. We've been going through, working in a very cooperative fashion with anybody who abuts us. If there's something beyond that, obviously, in hindsight, maybe we should have done it, and I'll do that going forward. I have no problem doing that with respect to the future expansions. As I said, I got the comment about transparency. I do agree it should be transparent. It's not as if there's something nefarious about this, the height or anything like that. And we're happy to put that out in more public domain going forward, and even host events. I'm happy to do that. I understand that it's something that the board's cognizant of, and we'll certainly try to make sure that that's not an issue moving forward. But it still brings me back to today's a very critical juncture for us. I understand, we're not trying to put anything at last minute. It just is what it is, as far as time-wise.
Well, I'm looking at it it is what it is. And, whatever we do, we'll do. I'm done.
Thanks, Bob.
Just following up on a similar line, I'm not necessarily opposed to the project, but I do think it's reasonable that the concerns of the neighbors be accommodated. And our concern, the concern of this board and the job of this board is to look out for the city and its residents. And if the residents, feel that they need another 2 weeks, it's unfortunate that you've had site issues and other delays, but, those are not necessarily the primary concern of this board, and I think it would be reasonable to allow for that kind of a delay to allow the residents to be heard and their concerns addressed.
I understand.
This time I'll open it back up to Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Edward Caulfield, 589 Princeton Boulevard, Lowell, Mass. I don't want to be redundant, but I must say this, that when Lowe's proposed building a building in the Highlands on Stevens Street, I was asked to meet with that developer, and I met with that developer. And this is what the developer asked me. I want to do everything right. Please give me some guidelines on what I should do. I said, well, the first thing you should do is probably give Nancy Judge a call, chairman of the Highlands Neighborhood Committee, and have a meeting regarding traffic and what this project, how this project would impact that neighborhood. That developer met, I would say, 60 to 70 people at the Bailey School. Nancy Judge was the moderator. And not one meeting, but at least 4 meetings, Mr. Chairman. And because of those meetings, the state widened the road on Industrial Avenue. It improved the widening of Stevens Street. And it answered all the questions that the neighbors had. And the people that were doubtful said, Lowe's is going to ruin our neighborhood. It's the best thing that ever happened to that neighborhood. People go there shopping, and some of the people who were doubtful, I've seen them in Lowe's buying products. Earlier this evening, I asked for a simple request, and it's done all the time, to have a 2-week delay, and I enjoyed many of your comments. So Mr. Pellegrino can meet with the neighborhood leaders and people who live in that neighborhood. It's a simple, simple request. But you heard his answer. He said, no, I won't do that. He is not a good developer if he said that. Every developer that I ever worked with or met, the first thing they wanted to do was appease people, not aggravate them. These people that are here tonight, they're all my friends. I know them for decades. Middlesex Village is the oldest neighborhood in this city. 1655, the town of Chelmsford incorporated, and Middlesex Village was part of Chelmsford. Chelmsford annexed that neighborhood to the city of Lowell in 1874. The oldest house in the city of Lowell is the Bowers House on Wood Street. Much, much history. We take a lot of pride in that neighborhood, a lot of pride. And we want to work with developers, especially Mr. Pellegrino, who wants to build a 4-story school building. 2 years ago, it was a 2-story building. 2 years have gone by, and no construction has happened there. I don't see a problem with delaying this issue for 2 weeks. And Mr. Pellegrino, I know we can find a nice meeting place for you to meet with the neighbors. It's not a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does the board members have any follow-up at this time? Further questions or concerns? Put that back up. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns or follow-ups at this time?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just...
Sure, Mr. Fischel, go ahead.
Questions. Joe, just, I guess some information that I would be looking for, and I believe Mr. Boyle asked if the various departments were given the plan and as required under the site plan review, and then for their comments. And I know it's not mandatory that they respond, However, I certainly would like to get an affirmative or a negative comment, one way or the other, from the fire department. Have we received anything from the fire department?
No, not for this latest iteration, no.
Okay. And then in the, and what I would be looking for is the, when we initially approved the project for K through 5, and we were looking at the parking plan and the transportation plan, at least at that time, and even through the charter, what were the numbers that we were looking at? Because I think we need to, any decisions that's made with this proposal, I think we need to actually incorporate the numbers in there. Because I think Mr. Boyle had a very valid point. Again, we're creating additional capacity, and I'm questioning our ability under the original approval to limit the actual number of students that are there. And none of that was taken into consideration with the traffic study and even the parking plan and the flow. Although we did anticipate future growth when we did look at those, but the traffic study did not take that into account. And I think that would be imperative that we have that information and to incorporate that into any decision. And I really would be looking for comment one way or the other from the fire department for this board to be, have some assurance that in fact they have no issues with what's being proposed, or they have some concerns. And I think being a school, I think everyone in this room should be concerned with making sure that we have proper input from the fire department. And again, I reiterate, Joe, you have not heard one way or the other from the fire department at this point, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just have a couple of minor comments. I understand the fact that they're coming in asking to put on 2 new stories due to the fact of a cost-saving nature. I understand they're saying that it's not going to affect the traffic at this point in time because there will not be any additional students there. But one of the questions I did have is, I mean, and I know Mr. Pellegrino wasn't the original developer. I think he's probably the 3rd contractor, if my memory serves me correctly, trying to follow this through. But, I mean, the first phase was they were going to build a two-story building, put K through 5, open up the building, go through everything, let everything function properly, see how the traffic works, see how the circulation of the traffic works and everything else. And then eventually, after that was up and running, then they would come back in the future to look for the expansion of the additional grades. And at that point, we'd have a complete traffic study done, and we would analyze everything else all over again. So the only question I have that I don't know if you can answer this is, the people who gave us the project to begin with, how were they planning on, if building the second 2 stories, or just without putting those steel beams in that you say now are imperative to get those up to save the $500,000? Do you know how they were going to plan on doing that, or just? That was the. Because they came in to begin with, they weren't going to come back and build anything up until the 5 through K was up and running.
Right, and we're, same thing, but there's just the cost savings by being able to do it and not having, they thought the elevator, you could do a 4-story shaft.
Okay.
With an elevator that goes to the 4th floor and buy that one. You can't. It has to be a 2-floor elevator, so you have to basically tear it down and throw it away. Okay. And you have to put the rubber membrane roof over the top of the 2 floors and then tear that off and move your HVAC or whatever units you have. Okay. So those costs coupled together are just
more
expensive.
The elevators, and I know the roof and extra buildings are very expensive, so.
And and I tried to explain this before, but one of the most important reasons was the time frame. Trying to get this done for September, we couldn't do the 4.
Right.
But because of the delay, and we've been able to find an alternative site to get us till December.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
That's why we're trying to come back in. So I don't differ with anything you said about, that was my understanding as well, that, and we're still expect to do that, come back in after this operation so you can see it and, move for future expansion. Right. But we understand that this would keep us in compliant. And I don't have any issue with, I don't know, Mr. Frechette, Mr. Frechette's comments. you know, the charter numbers, that what I wasn't here at those original meetings, but they're the same, they haven't changed. So it's the charter, the 5-year, that's what they based it off, the 755, I think was the number. I can give you the exact, but that's what my understanding was, if it helps.
So if the delay to hit prohibited you from getting those extra steel beams in, so what would happen is you'd just build the first 2 stores and still try to open up by January?
Right, right. It's just you know,
I understand,
frankly, we
yeah.
probably can get in, it's just gonna be $500,000 more for the school, that's
So I mean, after reviewing the plans, once you get on board, your concern was if we can put the 2 extra stories on, we can save $500,000 and don't build anything up in there and just get that done, and if we don't improve in the future, then it's our loss.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what, I've consulted the board, the school board, and I've advised them of that.
Because you don't feel that at this point you're not asking for any more students, and therefore the traffic all has to meet what we approved to begin with, because there'll be no additional traffic. We've already approved the landscaping plan, we've already approved the traffic plan. All those all have to be adhered to as we are now. You can't change any of that without coming before us. It would just be
Exactly.
putting 2 more story building on that would be vacant.
And also, just in response, we did address the fire issue, that was one of the things we discussed.
Sure. Could you just face it that way? Yeah. Yeah.
Done because of, remember when we revised the
Yeah, I recall.
specification?
Yeah.
That was done for fire.
Right.
So there's no impact on fire now, whether 2 or 4, because that's what we did this one back here.
Right, the fire thing's on the loop by the, if you just turn them out to the audience and show that, because now that we understand, okay. Yeah, they asked for the fire lane behind the school building, is what the fire department asked for, right. Because at first we had it in front, and the fire department came in and requested the fire lane in the rear.
And that's why we changed, that's why we did that whole, so, this side, we're coming in this side.
And it- right.
Full access to the building from both sides. The only time that would become I don't want to say the only time, but when it would be for a future expansion, if we brought the building over this way, which would be the idea, then you'd have to deal with bringing a road in from the back around here as well. That's why we did this
Right,
whole
I recall.
plan to deal with the
Okay.
fire and our concerns.
Right, right. And they thought it was safer putting it in the rear instead of in the front.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I remember,
what they-
yeah.
That's what they wanted, that's
Okay.
what we did, and
Okay.
we coordinated with them, and that's why they were pleased with it.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any further follow-up, any comments? If not, what's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the public hearing until the next scheduled meeting of the Lowell Planning Board to allow for adequacy of review by city departments
Yeah, neighborhood.
and hopefully to allow some meeting of the minds out in the neighborhood.
Okay, we have a motion to continue for the next meeting, which I believe is, what's your book, the October? it's the
October
first.
1st.
What's it?
I'll second that motion.
October the 5th, Monday, October the 5th.
If the maker of the motion would allow, Mr. Chairman, I would actually to specifically, also for clarification, just so we would have it for the next meeting, K through 5, what the actual number of students that would be, because I think that needs to be incorporated into the decision that's made. And then I would just add that it be, that we mandate that between now and the next meeting that the developer does meet with the neighborhood group prior to our next planning board meeting.
I don't know if we can mandate that. I know we can suggest it, but I don't think there's nothing under our bylaws in the site plan review that the applicant has to meet with the neighborhood.
Well,
That's
then-
been something that we've recommended over the years, but it's not nice site plan review that we have them do so. I mean, obviously, we encourage it.
I guess I would turn to the petitioner and say, would you be agreeable to that, Mr. Pellegrino?
Okay.
So you'd recommend that the applicant meet with the,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, neighborhood association, okay.
You're talking about Ms. Judd's,
That is correct, yes, please, yes.
Right.
Yep, yep. I would suggest you connect with her this evening, yes.
Okay. Do you accept those alternative conditions on the motion to continue, Mr. Boyle? To get
Yes,
the-
certainly.
Get the number and recommend that they meet with the neighborhood? Okay.
Yep, yes,
Okay.
certainly.
All right. So motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Opposition, hearing none. The vote is approved. The matter is continued to our next meeting, which is October 5th. Thank you, everybody, for coming in for your input.
Point of order.
Sure.
Is the board requiring any kind of traffic studies for the neighbors?
What will happen is, the only time we have to do a traffic study if it's recommended by our traffic city engineer. If the city traffic engineer recommends it, the more time than not, we go along with it. We don't have to go along with the peer review. We've done the peer review in the past on a couple of situations when it is a big project, like we've done on this one in the Walgreens. That's something that we don't have to do, but we've suggested it over the past, and we have done it. So that's usually if we get, sometimes it comes out of the recommendations of the traffic engineer. The reason on the Walgreen, they didn't do it, but the planning board requested it due to the fact is because the city council and the city manager are the ones who agreed to sell that proposed parcel of land, and the traffic engineer works for them. So we want an independent person from outside, and that was recommendation made by Attorney Joe Claremont at the time, and that was recommended by the board.
Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome, sir. Good luck. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Chairman, I think it might be worthwhile to have a little conversation now with staff about this, about the review, and perhaps even among ourselves.
I think we should do it afterwards, since we've already made the motion and continued it, yeah. I do.
Understood.
Okay? Yeah, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem, okay? Yeah. I don't think it's appropriate to start that up at this point.
He is on WRLA. He is a big-time Democrat. He's a Chelsea. He's associated with those guys.
Same here. Take care. Thank you.
Rafa, Bud Caulfield, the city council. All your good friends. He will help us out. I think the big thing is the meeting. Get the meeting together. We can how's your mother doing? You had both knees up there? Yep, one. She only needed one. I thought you needed two. I said, oh boy. Did my brother play? No. He's going to be calling me. What's your first name? Rafer. 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 It's a little Rafer. Okay. No, football. He used to be a former DA in Middlesex. Oh, really? Yeah. He was a wrestler in his day. Springfield boy, I think. Okay. But we're mandated from the first meeting we had with sidewalks all the way out to Middlesex
Well, you know, let's get the wood meeting.
Yeah.
And we can lay everything out.
But the sidewalks are in there.
I don't know anything about it.
People who these meetings should be listening.
I don't know anything
It's
about
like, man,
I only use that.
we're gonna give them, they gotta give, he's gonna give them $50,000 and then $25,000. I know they can't.
And you walk in with this, it totally flew out of my mind. My head was like, I don't have time to change this. Well, I'll put my blazer on it. You know, I was thinking I was going there, but wait, this is a good deal. Yeah. Tom walks in, I stand up. How am I supposed to stay?
Nice, no.
I'm not sure. I've never been in this
Well,
situation.
I left my
before.
house at 5 or 6 anticipating traffic because of the work bridge. Then I got here 20 past.
And again,
Right?
I got from Nashua
Yeah.
to Gorham Street faster than I got from Gorham Street to here.
Okay, moving along, the next matter, we have a pre-application. We have 1416 Cabot Street. This is a pre-application. Application's proposal to expand the existing commercial building to include a residential dwelling unit. The planning board takes no public vote tonight and no public input, and does not recommend any recommendations that would favor or disfavor the application. This is for informational purposes only on behalf of the applicant. Hearing that, may we hear from the applicant, please?
Hey, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, David Plunkett, representing the applicant or the proponent of the matter here before you tonight, Cabot Ram LLC. We appreciate actually the availability of the planning board for this type of informal meeting, get the feedback and let you have an idea of what we're looking to do. We already had some meeting with the city's development office, trying to, again, get as much feedback as possible before there's anything, committed and moving forward. Mr. Chairman, this, just in terms of identify the site, it's the area at 1416 Cabot Street. It's currently the site of the Charlie's Pub. At this time, it's a one-story development with just the restaurant, a pub activity at the site. Its address is 1416 because of the fact that there were multiple stories to this building previously. And in fact, the doorway was the original doorway leading up to the upper floors is still there. It's just leading, then it's capped off and it leads to nowhere. But, years back, it did have additional stories with residential uses on top of it. There was a fire in an adjoining parcel of an adjoining building that resulted in the damage to those upper floors. They removed it. But at this time, the owner sees this as an area that is really, I think it's clearly, if you see the plans, that this would be something that would be very good for the site. It'll be a beautiful addition. It'll provide housing. He sees he's in the business there, and he knows the demand. They're looking to make efficiency apartments, and knowing that he owns the property next door also, which is residential, constantly getting inquiries, gee, have anything available, and looking for things smaller scale also. People, a big market looking for a smaller size dwelling area. So with that, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do right now is just turn it over to Mr. Roland Mainville, who's the principal of Ram Pub LLC, and go through the initial proposal.
Mr. Plunkett, before you leave, what's the zoning over there? I know it's written down here, but I missed writing it down. What's it currently zoned now? Joe, do you have that?
UMU.
UMU, is it?
Yes, it's the UMU.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
this is, yes, the use is an allowed use, and actually it could be much more intensive use in terms of height, density, and everything else. And the feedback that we received was that, because of the square footage, it would trigger the planning board oversight, which is fine. And, I say, but before we get too far into it, want to get as much feedback as possible.
So the square footage would trigger the site plan review?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
Well, I'm not sure if so much square footage, but it's the amount of units, I believe, but I'm not sure. Anything over 3 units requires
Is that what you, okay, so how many units are you requesting?
12 units.
12? Okay.
Roland Mainville, Cabot Ram LLC, 5 Asbury Way, Lowell, Mass. Glad to say that, I've been there for 3 weeks. Previous project that you guys worked with us on worked out very good.
That took a little while, but we worked out well. Yeah, we had to come back with the zoning change and everything, right, Counselor? And that's what the neighbors requested, the zoning change, and in the long run, it worked out well.
Yeah, it did.
But it took a little time,
Yeah.
but after the zoning change, I think it worked out for everybody over there.
Roland, you moved there?
Excuse me?
You moved there?
We did, yeah.
Ha!
Yeah. So, Mr. Plunkett had kind of said it in a nutshell. This building was built in the 1890s, late 1890s. Very structural building. We have steel inside the building. When the building was built, like he said, we had multiple stories above. There was 2 full stories plus a steep roof, which accommodated a walk-up attic. So technically 3 stories above the bar. What we'd like to do, and just to give you a little history, I bought the bar November 23rd, 2008. Kind of bad time for construction, because I am a builder, developer, carpenter by trade. Charlie Gill called me and said, you know, anybody that wants to buy a bar? I said, who the heck would want to buy a bar? 2 weeks later, we sit down and we negotiate, and I'm a proud owner of a bar. So, but knowing that I was in an area, an up-and-coming area, within the zone, which would let me go up 7 stories, so with that in the back of my head. After 7 years, I like the business, a good business. The area's come a long way. It's now time to do what the original plan was, is to add additional units. I own the 4-family next door, which is 2224 Cabot Street. I own a few other units in the city, done some development in the city, and now again live in the city. I've been in the city my whole life. So this is what we're going to be doing, and it's going to fit the neighborhood really well. If you can, I had a big map drawn so you can kind of look at where we are. We're highlighted on there. And what's around us. We have all 3, 3.5, and 4-story buildings around us, which would fit the neighborhood pretty well. We're not going to put a peak roof back on. We're going to put a flat roof on so we can reduce any more height than we need to go up. So we're going to go up the full 3 stories, which would make us a 4-story building, but with no additional height on the roof. Really kind of just want to, you have the plans there that I'm sure you've looked at. I kind of just want to answer some questions or concerns that you guys might have, because it is zoned for this, and want to kind of have an idea of what's going to be asked of us. They're all studio units. They're about 400 square feet each. There's a bathroom in each unit. They have their own kitchenette, little kitchenette dining area, as well as a bed. No wall for the bedroom, just kind of like 2 walls on each side, about 2 feet, just to distinguish a bedroom area. Very, like David said, compact units, very efficient, new, clean. Neighborhood needs it, city needs it.
So it'd be basically like a 1-bedroom unit, you'd call them?
Well, we have to call it a studio because it's not really a separate bedroom.
Because it's mixed.
Yeah.
Okay. No, open concept, I should say.
Open concept units, yeah.
So I guess one of the first questions is parking over there.
That was a question that was brought up, and that was kind of the only concern, really, that we had with Judith and Joe. And I guess there's a couple of options, and we're going to be willing to do whatever we have to do to make that work, whether it's lease space at the garage, ask for relief from this board, because I know that can be done to a certain extent, but also know that there was just, I don't know how many, but several, maybe even 100 parking spots just put on Father Morissette Boulevard, which is paid parking as well, so don't know if that can be considered. So that's something that we're willing to work with you guys, and maybe we can.
It has to be within so many feet, I forget the number.
1,500 feet. of the
300, is it?
dwell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
1,500 feet, which we would fall into.
Okay.
So I think between all of us, we can creatively figure something out that works for everybody. I now own the 4-family next door over there, and out of the 4 units, they've all been rented. I have one that is vacant, will be rented the first of the month. But more than half don't even have cars. I've rented to students at UMass, I've rented to professors at UMass that don't have cars, that use bikes or public transportation or walk to their campus. So I think that's the area that we're in over there, and I know parking is an issue. Not even so much an issue, but it has to be thought of. But remember, these are studio units, they're not 3-bedroom units. It'll be very small, either singles or new couples, or That's what we're looking to do over there.
But obviously, it's something that we have to consider under the site plan.
That's exactly right.
You know,
Yep.
so it's one of the criteria that
It's
we have to
top on
consider.
our list, so we just
Okay.
want to, and the other thing that's top on our list, and I've already talked to Mr. Olet about it, but we're going to get a meeting together with the neighborhood. I'm very active in the Acre neighborhood group over there, so we'll be getting together with everybody, which we do every month. Usually in December, we have a Christmas party at Charlie's, but it'll be before that. But we're going to go over any concerns or questions that people have, and the number one thing is parking going to be with them too, so we're going to do whatever we have to do to.
I just have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manville, just, so you own this building here, is it, I don't know if you can see that, right? I mean, it's, I know, it's not fair of me, but, right, is that the building that you, okay,
Charlie's, which is on the left of it.
Yeah.
okay. So, I'm,
Charlie's is the left, okay.
yeah, so what I'm just trying to visualize, 'cause I can see how low, because it's really, do the walls actually touch? Looks like they do, pretty close, huh? Yeah, okay. So,
So you won't be parking between the buildings then?
yeah. From the height of the building in the flat roof, how is that, where's that gonna come to, you know, I'm just curious as to how that's gonna look. Because you're almost coming from the
Well, you already have.
pitched roof to the,
Look at Charlie's, because
Yep.
Charlie's right on the side.
yep,
That's a one-story and has a hip roof, and at the peak of that hip roof, we'd consider almost 2 stories.
Yep.
So we'd be going up 2 more stories, which, and if you know the street, we're at the top of the
Yeah.
street. and this
Right. Oh,
building's
yeah, no,
at the
yeah,
bottom of the
yeah.
street.
Yeah, because it's not too far from here, it's right down the street.
oh, yeah, no, know it well.
Yeah, yeah, go out around that way, yeah.
Something like this,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then we go right out that way, yeah.
So, we
Actually,
would
in walking
probably
distance from here.
be-
basically.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use feet.
Yeah.
5 to 7 feet higher than this building.
Higher than the peak?
Well, I shouldn't say that, because this is a 3.5-story building right here, and this come off the low GIS. So this is 3.5 stories, and we're gonna be 4 stories. So if you're gonna say half a story, that should be 5 feet. We'll be 5 feet above that building.
I'm just trying to visualize. I mean, for yourself, you're gonna own the whole corner, so you wanna have that look
I do.
Yeah, you want it
appealing.
to look
Yeah.
similar to the neighborhood as well, you know?
So, this is kind of what it would look like, not a peak roof like
Yeah,
this roof. So
right,
this-
right, no, I
so that's
understand.
the corner.
And I'm just trying to visualize, it almost looks like, it's an addition to this, or this is gonna look like an addition to that building, because it's so close, so I'm just trying to. Oh, yeah, we determined about 6 inches, yeah. Yeah, at least 6 inches.
You can shake your neighbor's hand, it's right out the window, right?
So this roof comes to about here, and we're gonna probably be at the top of this window with the story, so we're probably gonna be 5 feet above this peak, we'll probably be here.
And I believe, didn't you say that that's going to be a very similar roof?
That's correct, yeah, if you look at that drawing, there's our building, that's my other building, and the roof line that I just showed you right here is this Elvis place right here.
Well, that's around the corner that's on Merrimack Street, though.
That's on Merrimack.
Yeah, no, I know that intimately, but I guess the building, following the line that you have here next to your building is still a pitched roof over here. So I'm just trying to get the feel for how that's gonna, yeah.
Billy, the Brothers Pizza, the guy that owns Brothers Pizza owns this and also owns Rancho Tipico.
Oh, okay.
So he owns these two and I own these two.
Looks like a monopoly board.
Let's go.
Yeah, boardwalk and, okay.
Again, the zone,
Yep.
allows you to go up 7 stories.
Oh, absolutely, yep,
We just, doesn't fit, it won't fit. It's
No,
single
it-
house,
Yep.
it's 7 stories, but that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for 12 units, you can't walk up 7 stories anyway. You're gonna be able to walk up to these units without a problem. Do you folks have the building plans themselves?
yes.
Yeah, we have some of them, yeah.
Right, some
Yeah.
of-
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna touch on a couple of small things that we'll work with, and the next time we come, I'll have them in big sets. We've been working on this for a while. When I say we, I'm talking about me and my wife. We've been working on this for a while, have known we were gonna do it for a while. Had some plans drawn up. The plans that we have drawn up show 2 stories plus my bar, which makes it a 2-story building. but it shows 6 units on each floor, not 4. But after, and it also shows an exterior emergency egress, which, looking at Charlie's, on the right-hand side in the alley area. So you have, I'm gonna try to help everybody here.
Yeah, no.
This little area right here, there's the bar, there's the other building I own, there's Merrimack Street. There's an area in here, but behind this building, there's already an external emergency egress. So after talking to Mr. Plunkett, because I own the other building, I'm saying to myself, well, I can give myself a easement, because there's only this much room between lot lines. I can give myself an easement to put that staircase in. Well, after I spent all this money, have it done, I show it to him, and he says, that might not be how this is gonna go. I said, okay. So I have another option, which went through Joe and Judith, and it really does a lot. I'm gonna write it. Actually, I'm gonna ask you if I can look at the,
This one.
and I'm gonna show you this too. Rid of the external,
That's the way out back, right? Yeah.
that's the alley that goes to Merrimack Street.
Right.
This is an existing staircase that comes in right now. Get rid of the external staircase. Get rid of this back portion. You guys wanna come and look this so we don't have to show it 3 times? I don't wanna.
So you're going to 3 floors of 4 as opposed to 2 of 6?
That's correct.
Stay, we'll make him come over here.
So just like this, Mr. Sneski, where I have 6 units on this floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I have an external staircase on this side over here. After going through what we're going through, it's been months, what I think is gonna be better, and this is what we're gonna propose when we come, is take this part of the building off, and we're gonna put an internal set of stairs. Get rid of this. Get a set of stairs that comes down and it goes out, and there's my egress. It's a cleaner egress. It does a lot of different things. There's no way to get into my basement right now, other than this little cubby hole behind the bar. So from outside, I can't get in my basement. So what this allows me to do is to put a bulkhead or a doghouse of some sort to get in there and use it for storage. I have 1,400 square feet down there that I can't utilize. Gives me an outside seating area. Right now, this is what I have for, wish I could show you, wish I had a site plan. On the back of that, is there a site?
This is everything with the packet.
Yeah. So on the back of this building, this is what I have for outside, if somebody wanted to go out and smoke a cigarette or something like that. Yeah, that there is what if I remove this portion of it, I have all this over here for outside seating. I have now an entrance to my basement. I have now an internal staircase, not an external staircase. It's great for the tenants, it's great for me.
Easier to maintain in the winter.
It's also, it's better for the police department, or you don't want people going to that alley. I know that we've had some problems in that back alley leading to Decatur Alley. So, not that I want to reinvent the wheel at this point, but I think it makes sense at this point to make it better.
So would you leave that as open space, that area that you can knock
That
down?
would be open
Okay,
space, so
right.
that actually makes it less condensed back there.
Right.
How would you service trash there?
Right now, we service trash through, I have a 2-yard dumpster that gets dumped once a week. It used to get dumped every other week. And now it would probably be, right now, I own 6 feet all the way down this side. So right now, I have a 2-yard dumpster that goes right here. What would have to happen with this dumpster, it would have to either go on the outside here, it would have to deal with Billy to get something on the outside. 'Cause
Let's see, this is,
that's the front, Cabot Street.
And this is the build, this is 26 that you
No, no, this is 14, 16.
No, but over here.
Over here is the other one.
Look like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
there
this
you
is
go. Yeah,
cabin. Okay, and your dumpster sits like right here?
That's correct.
Yeah. You know what's gonna be done with that corner? What those people are doing with that corner? That they
Wish
tore
I
the
did.
building down?
I wish I could
Yeah.
have done the front for sure.
Is that
I've
your
approached
dumpster
them
there,
a
or is that
couple-
down?
In the back is
Yeah,
this.
no, the roll-off. I went by there last week.
That's mine. That's my machine too. That's over here. Everybody knows that there was a small fire at Charlie June 26th in the storage area back here. I was closed for 4 weeks. We had extensive smoke damage in the front. We've been back in business for 2 months or plus now, so we're back in business. But that's why that dumpster's there. So that's my dumpster. They're very nice people. They let me use that. But that's the 2-yard dumpster that services this 4-unit building as well as my barn.
Can I just ask a question, Joe? Just, does this, because of Charlie's, under UMU, does this fall under all other uses or residential dwellings? Because what's being added is residential dwellings. I guess I'm,
All right, so this kind of falls into an area that we had seen before with 1514 Gorham
that's what I was
Street.
thinking, yeah.
If you recall that one, so you would look under other residential dwellings in this case.
So it'd be,
Right.
so it would fall under all other uses.
Other residential dwellings, because that's the more restrictive.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the 7 or more units on one lot?
It needs a special permit for having more than 7 units, that's correct.
So
In
under
terms of the
that, then
table of
it'd be-
uses.
they'd be looking for site plan and special permit.
Special permit.
Yeah, okay.
Are you saying, Joe, that residential units of 1,000 square feet per unit of land area does not apply in this situation, or does it?
I think it would apply in this
It
case.
does apply, okay, so,
Are you sure that's, it's not what we had, so can you go back and tell, the zone is what, Joe?
The zoning district is UMU. In 2 areas over there, there's 2 categories, residential dwellings and all other uses. Either way, there's no height restriction.
Uses, because it would be mixed use?
That's why I'm asking the question, because
that's why we're all asking
I'm a
the
little
question.
confused, to be honest
Yeah,
with
we
you.
can certainly.
Get clarification on that. That'll
clarification
be
on
important
that
for the
for you.
applicant to
To know that before you
too.
come back, for sure.
Yeah,
Because we have to file properly.
all right.
Yeah,
Right.
that way, you know.
In terms of height, there's still no restriction on height. In this case, it just is a
But
matter
I
of
mean, it
whether or
changes
not.
from not having a minimum lot area to having a minimum lot area, not having a land area per dwelling unit to having a land area per
Correct.
dwelling unit. And
Right.
so,
Right.
When we sat down. And I don't know if that matters or doesn't matter, if it helps or doesn't help, but where it was an existing, when it was built, it had multiple stories above it, so I don't know if that's bringing it back the way it was, or.
Yeah, once it's gone, then it's
been
different.
beyond 2 years? Has it been beyond 2 years? Yeah.
So once it's gone, you gotta start from scratch, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, we would need to get clarification on that.
Yeah,
whether
sure,
it
we can
falls
certainly
under
get that
the-
We'll
from
wanna
our
know
office.
before he comes in too, and Attorney Plinkett would definitely wanna
Because
know.
if it falls under the residential, there's a major issue there. If it falls under the all other uses, it's a different situation.
And then it might be, you know, how you design those units, depending on how many square footage you need, or for the land dwelling, if not. what
And then the
variance you're
difference
looking
between
for.
needing a variance and
Right.
maybe variances and everything else,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, so that means you gotta go before us and ZBA, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you wanna clarify that before you come back for your own purposes.
So right now, I see a couple of things we're gonna look at here, look at parking, which we'll address, and Judith had mentioned the dumpster, dumpster's something we're gonna have to address, but it may be able to go on the left side of that building, because that's what we use as a means of egress.
Yeah,
And then we have to get clarification on how this is being used and what.
for the land dwelling requirement.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I have another issue I want to bring up. That's the visual aspect of this. You know, the basic idea, 3 stories of dwelling units going on top of this, I like, but it could be done badly. and it would be a real detriment, or it could be done well and it could be really a real advantage. I don't want you to put a vinyl box on top of your bar. You know, I mean, you know, I'm looking at, okay, 8.115 Salem Street. I really don't want you to put that on top of your bar. On the other hand, you know, one possibility, this, where the top story is this this mansard roof, that's a classy detail. You just pitch in a little bit, I mean, and, you know, frankly, there are 1,000 options. I want you to pursue them. I don't want you to just do a vinyl box. Especially, and when you told me flat roof, oh.
No, flat roofs are not bad, especially in this area where, and if they're done right, one of them buildings has a nice overhang on it, it has some dental molding around it, it looks really nice. But you also have to realize in these older buildings they say, this comes like again from the GIS, where this says 3 stories and some say 3.5 stories and 4 stories. These buildings were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s with 10 and 12-foot ceilings. So that 3-story building with a 10-foot ceiling is now on 3 stories, 6 feet higher than my building would be, because I'm going to be using 8-foot ceilings.
Okay. Personally, speak for myself, this is the UMU district. I'm not worried about height. I'm worried about how your building looks.
Yeah, and how it looks, but the height in this situation is going to be key because you don't want it to tower over. This would be very much.
Yeah, you want to be consistent with the neighborhood, yeah, so it fits in.
Because the ceiling heights are higher in these other buildings, my building's gonna look uniform because they may have 4 stories and the other building has 3 stories. But they have 10-foot ceilings and we have 8-foot ceilings. So in other words, it's gonna look like the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I mean,
It's going to look like the neighborhood. It should look like the very best of the neighborhood. And I think that that brick building around the corner that was rehabbed for, I believe it was this one, 738 Merrimack. Boy, that was a beautiful project.
Yeah.
Hey, that's an example of a flat roof building.
That's
done
kind of
very
what I'm looking
nicely.
at. And the one next to it is very nice too.
Okay, so yes, it can be done well.
Yes.
It won't be if it's a vinyl box.
That's correct. We've used in the past cedar clacks, which I'm not gonna be a big fan of because it's a lot of maintenance. But we've also used pre-finished hardwood, which I am a big fan of. This is a good television without that's an option to use on that building because it comes pre-finished and it's a 15-year Baycon finish, so it's still low maintenance.
What I'd really urge you is to think, when you're thinking about the visual aspect of your building, don't just think about it as a skin you put on at the end and worry about as cosmetically. There's some buildings in this neighborhood that have upper story porches and different kinds of things. You know, don't just dress up. To really make a building look nice, you don't just dress it up at the end. You design it to be a good building.
We're restricted a little bit in that aspect, or a lot, because we don't have any room on the front, we don't have any room on the right side. We will have a little room on the back side, but that's really not gonna.
Yeah. There was one I was looking at. There you go. Yeah, they're almost like set in.
Yep.
This building. That's a nice. That's a nice
touch,
detail.
without the vinyl.
But you know, there are a lot of without the vinyl. Yeah, by the way, the point here was not that don't use any vinyl. Vinyl has been used on some very nice projects.
And there are some very nice vinyl.
There is. But yeah. My point here is, I want attention paid to how the building looks, and that means more than just I'm going to use the nice vinyl, and it means even more than I'm going to buy the trim too. Okay, think about your windows. You know, there's.
Just so you know, I'm in this neighborhood. I'm like I said, I'm from the city. I grew up on Cross Street here in Lowell. So, and then straight to Drake. I built a house in Drake. It was there for 8.5 years. Just built another house in Lowell that I moved back into. Plan on staying there for a long time. The building that I own on the bar on Cabot Street, I plan to be there for a long time. That's my retirement. So.
See, your strength here is that what you're doing, taking this out of character, one-story building, and adding residential units on top, I think would bring the site it would make it more consistent with the established neighborhood character. Right now, it's a bit of a sore thumb, and you add, along with the other one on the other side of the vacant lot, but you add stores on top, you know, you've got a very strong argument in my eyes that you're making your project more consistent with neighborhood character. But if you're in the visual aspect, you don't show that same appreciation and respect for the best of that neighborhood character, then that argument becomes a lot weaker. So, yeah, what I like about this is that it is an opportunity to, in a fine, detailed level, really restore the neighborhood character.
Did you want to?
You're going to be changing the facade of the bar as well?
The facade of the bar, yeah, we don't have a final plan for that. I'm not real sure what we're gonna do with the facade of the bar. I think actually we could get that stone to look really nice with the right material above.
Yeah, compatible with whatever the rest of it.
Correct. And remember, it is a business down below, which it's gonna stay a business. The awning will be an awning, or may not be an awning, but the middle part probably will continue to be an awning with maybe some signage flat on the building rather than overhanging the building. The reason why I put that in is because we can't smoke in bars anymore. I don't smoke, so it doesn't matter to me. People would go outside when it's snowing and raining, and there was no undercover. So this sticks out 3 feet, and it was good for that purpose. Another good reason in the back area to lose my storage area and create it in the lower level and create a little area out back where people can go and not stand out on the main street and just have a little privacy and have something to eat and drink. So as far as the facade, Mrs. Nesky, I'm not real sure. I don't think I'm going to be changing much with this, and if I do, it won't be at this point. I think I run into a couple of challenges when this does happen. I'm in such a tight restraint area to build, so I'm looking into modular because where I can rip that roof off in a day and have boxes set in 2 days, I'm only out of business for a week.
They can do that.
I try to stick frame that.
Yeah, but like the number of stories.
This much room on one side, on a street.
It's a better
We're
built
gonna
building.
close up both ends.
What?
Modular housing is a
So
better
I'm
built product.
juggling around a few things in my head right
Industrial.
now, so we'll make the best of that.
Industrialized.
So
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen with that in the future, nothing in the near future.
I just have one question, and doesn't pertain to site plan, but with the flat roof, how do you feel with snow removal and the drainage after last season? I mean, you know, when it's flat, it's hard to get rid of it.
We have plans drawn, this is drawn by an engineer with a stamp that has trusses that go from end to end of the building, so I would need no structural members inside. I could go from cement block to cement block. What that would do, the flat roof does a couple things. It actually eliminates with a pitch roof, all the water's coming off both sides.
It's gonna slide down, and the snow's gonna come down.
So you do have to mitigate the snow when it gets on, then you gotta get up there and shovel it. When it comes to a certain point. I mean, if there's a foot of snow and then it melts the next day, then you don't have to worry about it. So then what you have to do is you have to have a design where it's a flat roof, but it still pitches. And wherever it pitches is a drain, and the drain goes down and it goes into a spot where it's gonna drain properly. So we're not adding any more water, actually probably gonna be less going around the whole building.
Yeah, because
all that has to be designed.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you know, after last year, everybody's shoveling roofs and everything else, and then a flat roof obviously sticks around more than if you have a little slope to it.
Even the building next door has a 12 pitch on it, I still had to have it shoveled and I had ice dams. We would do an ice dam and all that. We don't want last year again.
No, I mean, we've had a rubber roof before, and we've been shoveling off it, and you gotta be careful up there.
Just a note of interest.
Over like this in porch area, but.
Just a note of interest, and I'm aware of some buildings, and I've been on the roof on a couple buildings right around the corner from where you are. It's not allowed anymore, but there are some buildings throughout the city that have flat roofs. when you get on there are actually roofs that pitch towards the center of the building, and there's a drain that goes down the center of the building, and it goes down into the sewer system. Yeah, it's not allowed anymore, but it's very, I mean, there's a 7-story building, I walked that roof, and I'm just amazed looking at how that is set up.
Yeah, now it's all pitched to the edges.
Yeah.
Several gutters on each side that the water would flow the same way it's flowing right now. So that's a good thought.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I guess those are basically some of my questions. I think, you know, the main thing about you wanted to handle with staff in regards to the dwelling unit.
You'll find that out for us, Joe?
Yeah, find that out, and then, obviously, I think you got some of our feedback, so you have an idea of what our questions would be.
Wouldn't that be disappointing? Wouldn't that be a disappointment?
What?
We thought he had a lot of everything for dwelling unit, and he does. It's only 1,000.
I'm sorry to hear about your fire there, but it sounds like luckily it didn't get as bad as it could have been, huh?
Nobody got hurt.
That's the most important thing,
And I
yeah.
had, the girl that was on duty that night did a good job.
Good. You're lucky now, huh? Good. That's the most important thing. You can obviously build the building, but,
I forget his name, Joe View or John View, the fire investigator. When he was there that night, he goes, probably less than 5 more minutes, he goes, this roof would have been on top of Cody's pocket.
oh, wow.
Wow.
Because of the smoke, had no place to go, and it was all capsuled into the roof. So if they didn't cut a hole, give the smoke a place to go, had
Wow.
nothing else to do.
So it's bad to have a fire, but on the other hand, it could have been a heck of a lot worse. But, well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, moving along on the agenda, do any of the board members have any follow-ups on any of the on any of the county boards they sit on? Joe, any comments from staff, anything coming up, or any concerns, or any questions you have of the board, or?
Nothing else really at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Joe? Has anybody gotten in touch with Adam Bakey yet? We wanted to have him, he requested he wanted to come before the board. What's that? Yeah, I had asked that before. It's had originally come up like a year ago or something about having him come before us just to do a little presentation on the university's building plans and stuff, just an informational thing. Happened to run into him again a few weeks ago, and he said he's still really interested. He'd like to get on the agenda sometime when we're slow.
Okay, sure. About university building plans, is that what you said? I'm sorry?
Yeah, about the university's construction plans in the city and,
Sure.
you know, just to hear where they're at, just an informational session. Thought it might be useful for us.
Sure.
Talking about, yeah, coming over from the old. Yeah, me either.
If, I don't know, if the next meeting, as soon as the next meeting, if we've got a light agenda, you know, we don't want to do it sometime when we have 4 public hearings.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Well, we will have the charter school on for the next meeting. So either maybe that or maybe the meeting after. We can certainly reach out to
Scope it
Adam
out,
and see
we'll
what
try to
his.
find out we don't have too much on, so he won't. Either that, we can put him on first. I mean, depending on how the qualifications file, you know, what I mean, who qualifies to file first,
Sure.
yeah. So,
Also, getting back to the charter school and the 2 weeks we bought ourselves here. What, do we want all of the city departments? I think we want all of the city departments to review this as if that space was going to be occupied.
well, I mean, Jerry pulled the thing out, it said basically they're supposed to weigh in, if they don't weigh in, you know, and all the comments were given to them. But, you know, obviously, it would have been nice if we had something from them.
Right, but I'm wondering if the first pass, when it was given to them, I suspect that they were given to understand, you know, probably by taking the applicant's word for it, that this is a change in the building, but there isn't going to be any change in occupation. There isn't going to be any additional students, or, you know, and that they were reviewing it based on that assumption. And what I would like is, I don't think that's a valid assumption. I think we should be reviewed by us, by them, by everybody, as if the space was occupied.
I know when they came in before, they told us it would be the K through 5, and they told us the amount of students they're allowed to have. And I think what the gentleman indicated tonight was they cannot expand on that until the charter school gets reapproved. So I
Right,
think
they
their
have to
number
get-
would have to stay the same, even if we allowed a third and fourth story. They still could not add any additional students.
Right, they would need an
They get
expansion of their charter.
approved, until they get their charter modified.
Yeah, but they still, well, they'd have to get that modified, and then they'd still have to come back and get permission from us.
But I guess the point, Joe, and I think that's why I thought it was imperative that we have the actual number that the original approval was based on, because then it's incumbent upon us with this next decision is to make sure we put that number restriction, because the point you made, and I get it, is it's K through 5. They get the charter change so that they can have 4 more classrooms added K through 5. Well, now, we've just approved, assuming you approve additional capacity, now you've created the room for them to meet the compliance of K through 5, but have more students.
And not have to come back to us.
But as long as we put that safeguard in place with the next decision, I think that's reasonable at this point. That's why I think it's reasonable. Because it's tough to ask, I think, the departments to assume it's fully occupied, because that really isn't but it's incumbent upon us to make sure that doesn't get occupied. That's the way, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Or more occupied. You know, I had brought up the idea of a condition, you can build it, but you can't occupy the space. That would make sense. On the
Well,
other
no, but
hand,
I think we
we've
do
got
it by
that number, and we use the
restricting
number,
Exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's a
and
way-
that's,
a way to-
again, that's my point with that, and it's important for us to have that number to incorporate that in the next decision.
And so that wouldn't really make a review based on assuming the space was occupied, all that necessary.
Correct, right.
I see, okay.
So we
I
just
think
keep,
that was the board's
Like I
intent
said-
all along,
Right.
to
Well, we
do
used it-
K
we-
through 5 in that number.
yeah, whatever that number
But
was.
one could probably try to make an argument that, I'm still K through 5.
I'd rather incorporate the number into the next
Right.
decision.
Yeah, I'd rather not try to make an argument,
Yeah.
I'd rather have black
Right,
and
and,
white.
if they have less students in a classroom or use the classrooms for special purposes and so forth, that's fine,
Right.
as long as the number of students don't exceed that number.
Right. We don't want to create additional work for attorneys.
Any further comments? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have adjourned. Good night, everybody, and thank you.
I hope my legs didn't appear on television.